Board of Parks and Recreation Commissioners of Kansas City, Missouri meeting for January 23rd, 2024 is hereby called to order. Will Secretary Houston please call roll?
Commissioner Contreras.
Here.
Commissioner Gares.
Here.
Commissioner Smith. Here. President Hayden.
Here?
Commissioner Caprice is joining by virtually.
Thank you.
Present. And Richard Allen is acting director today.
Here.
Right. Thank you. The first item on the agenda is the approval of the December 12th, 2023 board minutes. Does anyone have changes or comments to this item? All right,
Move to approve.
thank you. Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, this item is passed. We are now welcoming the Roz Group for their presentation of the Bruce R. Watkins Cultural Heritage Center and Museum Strategic Plan. Deputy Director Allen, do you have any initial comments, or should I hand it right over to Roz?
I think we're good for the presentation, and today, the only thing I would say is there will be no action taken at today's meeting, but the presentation will be presented, and there will be an opportunity for questions, and then it would be approved at another date, so.
Thank you.
And can we say that that's in consideration for any feedback that we may get after today, so that the board and staff can have time?
Thank you, Commissioner Smith.
Good evening. My name is Emil Cleaver. I'm the Executive Director at the Bruce R. Watkins Cultural Heritage Center. I've been there just shy of 2 years. So I am excited that we put a strategic plan together. My predecessor, Glenn North, actually mentioned it to me as he was leaving, that this was something that he was working on. So we did a nationwide search. The Roz Group was the most qualified. They had a lot of experience in doing this, so we hired them to put together this strategic plan. They met with the parks, the state, city officials, and the Friends of Bruce Watkins and community members to come up with the plan. And so my hope going forward is that we will pass the plan, and that I will get a chance to be a part of the implementation of this strategic plan. So without further ado, I want to introduce the Roz Group.
Thank you, Mr. Cleaver. Thank you.
Well, hello, commissioners, and thank you for my second attempt without snow to join you in person. We've had a really amazing time working on this project. We're very hopeful, and so I'm going to present an overview, and I'd like to thank the Friends of and the cultural arts peers like Anna Marie and Dr. Karma, and a number of the community members who are present today for this presentation. This is a really amazing time in our nation to celebrate African American excellence, and I believe that you have some serious potential. So let me start here. So quite naturally, this is the current mission statement. And based on some of our recommendations, you will see that the mission statement will change. But at the core is leveraging the talent and the contributions of Bruce R. Watkins to create an ongoing legacy experience. All right, so background. More than 30 years, which is pretty amazing for an African American institution to have sustained itself for that length of time. This institution has been a source of great pride for the African community and beyond, because these institutions are designed to educate everybody, not just one sector. And then the elders of the community want to ensure that generations to follow know of the late Bruce R. Watkins. And I'm very comfortable saying elders, since I'm one too. Okay. Uh-oh. Sorry. So here's the current situation. The center is at a critical point in its life cycle, and it requires transformative decisions if it's going to propel forward and be sustainable for the next 30, 40 years. There is an opportunity to consider a new business model, and a new mission could take the center in a contemporary direction. So we conducted a very extensive SWOT analysis. So here are the highlights from that, and more detail is in the 60-some-odd page report. So strengths: that you have a committed community of long-term supporters. You're located in a central part of the community. It has been around for more than 30 years. Bruce Watkins and a number of your elected officials are quite celebrated. As a matter of fact, I met Senator Washington in D.C. at a conference for community college trustees. I'm vice chair of the board in Philadelphia. And then you have peer arts leaders who want to participate in the success, and we're very happy that a group of them actually sat around the table with the meal over at the archives, Black Archives, and came up with what we think is going to be a good new mission. This is a city with a robust African American presence, and the center has really good rental space that can become part of the revenue model. So weaknesses: staffing is limited. There's a complicated organizational governance structure. There is no fundraising plan in place, and that's a must. You need a plan to attract a contemporary and varied audiences. And there's a lack of resources to bring in attendance-generated exhibitions. I might also add that at a certain point, you might be in a position to develop exhibitions that you rent out to other places. There's a need for a 3 to 5 year programming plan. There's inadequate public funding and insufficient private donations. Okay, so opportunities. Develop a funding model that is more intentional and truly sustains a black institution in the 21st century. You know, the paradigm has shifted in terms of how cultural institutions are expected to deliver an experience. We see partnerships with peer institutions, including universities and college, and the Tourism and Convention Board should be a real strong part of a marketing plan. In Philadelphia, we coexist with them, and that really generates attendance and also contributes to rentals revenue. The new mission I mentioned would be one dedicated to civic engagement, and this is one of the few venues in this city that can speak to the African American experience, and multimedia programming that addresses historic and contemporary issues for African Americans is critical. So threats. Past funding models have not supported black institutions in earnest. Fundraising at this time is not present and is critical to an updated mission. I mentioned before the difficulty in retaining staff. A lot of that has to do with underpayment and, you know, folks not really being taken seriously in terms of executing a vision for what this could be.
Ms. Ross, when you say underpayment, do you just mean like not competitive?
Not at all.
Not competitive
The salaries
rates?
are, yes,
Okay.
the salaries are not at all competitive.
Thank you.
And I think there's some part-time stuff. So that's a model that really we need to take a look at. And we have actually recommended later on hiring model, a staffing model, if you will, one that would support this vision.
Ms. Ross, I have a question. This original presentation was given in November. We gave some considerations. Is that built into this
Yes.
presentation?
Yes.
Okay. So
And this one is expanded because it also includes additional research that was being done. So a lot of the financial modeling and stuff was more recent.
Got
And a version of this was presented to the public. So this one is certainly more complete.
Thank you.
And gives you more with which to make critical decisions. Okay, we want to make sure that this experience is critical to youth, and there's need for a contemporary vision for programming, events, and displays. And I think that organizing mechanism that we're talking about will certainly help. A big threat is the lack of climate control in the building. So a lot of your documents are literally disintegrating. So there is a need for a new home for that, unless you're going to deal with a whole new HVAC system. And also, you could put some of those artifacts on loan, or you need to inventory them to decide what actually needs to be kept and where it should be housed. So here are some draft recommendations. And let me also say that these recommendations come from a variety of sources. The input from the community, input from cultural arts peers. We've also benchmarked you against other similar institutions around the country, and we've had good interviews and group discussions with stakeholders. So these are the categories for consideration: organizational structure, governance, fundraising, archives, programming, mission and vision, and nothing survives without proper marketing and audience development. So this is your current governance structure with 3 organizations with roles and responsibilities. The facility is owned by the state and the Parks and Rec folks. And in 2021, Parks and Friends of Bruce Watkins have been operating based on a plan to provide operational services. So this is something that you have to delve into pretty deeply, because we're going to suggest that you disrupt the current model. So governance recommendations. We're asking that you consider a governance structure that creates the framework for autonomy, growth, and sustainability. Establish a board with fiduciary oversight and fundraising capacity, thus making the institution more attractive to funders. I definitely believe that there could be a good fundraising plan in place. I'll just mention that long before I worked on this project, I actually did some work for the Kemper Museum of Contemporary Art. And when I consider some of those board members, many of whom are deep-pocketed, I'd love an opportunity to make connections like that. I have several folks that I've known for a while who are part of Hallmark. So you've got other institutions and corporations in this city that, when presented with a real business plan, should be interested. Okay, so we want to also make sure that the center is eligible to apply for significant grants. There are a number of good grant opportunities at the national level, and with a plan of this nature, you might even be able to access a planning grant, any number of things. And then I like to explore the Kansas City Museum as a model. Yes, it's not the end-all be-all, but I think that what transpired over there is a good framework for us to consider in this particular instance. So I think Anna Marie has done an outstanding job. She's a collaborative peer and has been so willing to share information and to come up with some of these ideas. And I also want to celebrate Gail over there, who has been such a steward, she's from the Friends, of this important legacy, because things don't sustain themselves on their own. Yeah. Okay, so so here are my friends of Bruce Watkins. So we're saying to consider a new advisory non-voting relationship with the center and the Friends, establish term limits, thus encouraging new people to join. We have to be about cycling new blood into these history institutions. And then I say we establish a newly defined role for the Friends and continue to honor their legacy of stewardship. And that could be the basis for an annual fundraising event. Okay, so the archives. We've talked about the lack of proper climate control. Archiving requires specific skills if you're going to really leverage that opportunity. I recently ran a meeting of archivists in Philadelphia with people at OIC Philadelphia, Zion Baptist Church, and that's where the legacy of Reverend Leon Sullivan exists. And we brought in folks from Temple University, and that's when they discovered that Temple actually houses the collection of OIC artifacts. So I'm suggesting find a place that already has that climate control and the opportunity to make loan agreements with other institutions. So I put down some places to consider. But also know that when you do a proper inventory of these archives, you might even be able to loan some of these items to the National Museum of African American History in Washington, D.C. Or you might be able to form a collection of things that travel. So these are the kinds of different ideas we have for generating revenue. Okay, marketing and audience development. It is important that a position be created to establish public relations, communications, and where appropriate, advertising. I'm not big on a lot of paid advertising for museums. We have to rely on editorial development, but those relationships become critically important because if you get in on the cycles that your tourism folks have, then that takes you a long ways, and some of the other partnerships. And an oversight of community engagement can be a part of this role. I think you've got a community of very interested citizens, and they need to be engaged regularly. They've got good, solid ideas. A lot of these folks are amazing professionals with a long history in this city. And I'm also one that cautions us about the use of the word community. That is not intended to be equated with underserved. You've got a variety of demographics in your community that can make valid contributions. And then, of course, your tourism and conventions. So, of course, I put the Kansas City Museum as a model. Many of you know a number of the steps it took. This is not an automatic thing. It might take 5 or 6 years or 7 years to get it up and running. And you have to do one that's customized to Bruce Watkins. You can't just simply duplicate those efforts. And we recognize that there was strong support from Parks and Rec leadership and the mayor at the time. And the museum has a strong visionary leader with deep museum experience since 2013. So museum experience is a real must in this. I come out of the background of having run a major science museums. If anybody's been to Franklin Institute in Philadelphia, I ran the museum portion of that institution. That's where I picked up my construction experience. I came with financial experience, having worked for Time Warner on the publishing side. So I also had the strong content development background, and I'm a marketer by training. Okay, so civic engagement, a potential new mission. And this is the group of cultural peers sitting around the table where this idea emerged. And that it was really a very exciting moment. So the goals would be to make sure people have a voice and are both heard, respected, and understood. It's a situation where we could really focus on voters' rights. Civic responsibility in your community, knowing how to affect change, multi-generational storytelling and conversation. There's a lot of attention being told to telling the stories and ensuring that they are multi-generational. And then cross-cultural conversations. We can't exist in vacuums. We've got to interrelate with lots of people, and also recognize that the people we're dealing with have very interesting backgrounds. And then we can showcase artists that are focused on social justice or civic engagement. And I'm careful about how I use certain words, because I know that in today's media system they can be lightning rods, but you know what I'm talking about. And then focus the mission and programming on the intersections of civic engagement, heritage, arts, and culture. So you create economies of scale by doing the integration of this. And then the civic engagement definitely attracts peer partnerships, and it could become part of the national conversation, which would be a real opportunity to bring symposiums and things of that nature to the center. So these are just some benefits of a focus on civic engagement. I'm not going to go through all of this because you have the documents in front of you. And then I'm just going to briefly tap on to financial analysis. And again, you have this in two places. So we are recommending $2.3 to $3.5 million over 3 years to be the transition funding, and it would include organizational development and transition, a governance study, a master plan, a fundraising plan, marketing, branding, engagement, program, and early action. It does not include capital improvements like HVAC or the full implementation of recommendations from the plans that were developed. Okay, here are some of the potential funding sources, and they include reaching out to African American service organizations like the Divine Nine and the Links and what have you, and faith-based organizations. Major churches will often support this, but we're also looking for private individuals, philanthropic institutions, and corporations. So we believe that presenting them with things of this nature will pique the interest and curiosity. Okay, operational success factors. We've given what we see as a list of things that will get this off the ground. So become a cultural heritage center.
I don't know what happened.
Are you all trying to shut me down?
Never that.
No.
Can you give her, yeah.
Thank you. I think most of them have a copy.
Do you all have copies?
And my good friends back here have actually seen a lot of this, right?
A lot of that.
Okay, all right. So I'll make sure you get it, and you can call.
Do you have some more copies? So we can get Ms. Gill. You need a copy of this?
Of this, I don't have this exact one. I have a
Right.
different version.
Okay, we'll make sure we can.
We died.
Yeah.
We're coming close to the end, but I did want to be able to, so I'll just talk through the success factors. Support the appropriate staff, management, and leadership infrastructure. Be well maintained physically, financially, and programmatically. The marketing plan, an active fundraising plan, and that has to change every year, and reflect a tightly operated project with a bottom line orientation. When I was at Franklin Institute, my boss used to say, no margin, no mission. So I think we have to put that in place here. And the next chart actually shows what we're suggesting as your organizational chart out of the gate. And it includes a board, advisory committee, an executive director, a CFO/accounting person, an executive assistant, a program director with a curator and educator reporting up, marketing and events director, and that has to be a combination of marketing and sales function, with an assistant, facilities, security, and development director. And development people often report to marketing, but the bottom line is you need somebody who is focused on building the relationships that will lead to friends, that will finance.
And
So,
Ms. Ross, in
Yes.
the budget slide before that, where you've got the 1.14 million annual operating budget, does that include the 7.8 full-time equivalent staff members?
Yes.
That's for every position being
That's right.
full. Okay, great.
And that's starting, okay? Because as the institution grows and evolves, you'll add more to that. Okay, so in terms of next steps, we are hoping for the approval to implement. I now know that you're going to vote on this possibility in February, and we are hopeful that there will be a development plan that we're very interested in being a part of that. So at this point, do I invite, is it my job to invite?
No.
Okay.
I have a couple of questions from
Yeah,
us.
yeah, thank you. Go ahead, Commissioner Smith.
Okay.
Charles, huh?
So thank you, Roz, to you and your team and to the community that has taken so much time. As I stated, in November, you shared a draft of this, and I appreciate to see some of the considerations that we discussed in there. But I want to be careful, and maybe explicit is a better term when we're doing this comparative view with the Kansas City
Yes.
Museum. And the reason why, and I've talked to Anna Marie about this, the support that the Kansas City Museum receives from the tax levy is a game changer.
Yes.
And everything that you're talking about, I appreciate you walking through the civic and just kind of the content oriented, but this is initially about an equitable fund distribution that historically Bruce R. Watkins has not received.
Correct.
And so I want to be clear about that. So when we talk about money and unfortunately, Bruce R. Watkins is not the only black-centered institution that this has befallen on. So I want to not just frame it as if we just do what they did, but understand the historical analysis.
Yes.
And then Terrence, help me out. How much money from general funds if any, what's the history of our general fund allocation for
This past fiscal year is about 365,000.
for Bruce R. Watkins?
Well, for the general fund, Bruce R. Watkins was significant. That was, I think it was less than $200,000, somewhere around there for Bruce R. Watkins.
And Anna Marie is here, and so, and Anna, we had a really good conversation about how much does the museum get through the tax levy?
The annual levy is at 2 mills, so it is about 1.8 million. And out of that, after the city takes its debt service and its
Right.
administrative fees, and we pay utilities and everything for the city's property that it owns, it's about $1 million that we have
Okay.
to operate.
Thank you. And so the reason why I want to level set with that is because I think, and this is, of course, we have some work to do, which I appreciate Terrence and the team. This is something that we've been talking about. I think I joined the commission in March. We've been talking about how can we really make room for greater pay or, revenue equity as it relates to these institutions. And so those things are in the works. But I think that if we can get more financial flow, then, all these things, because, the community, the friends there's not a dearth of ingenuity or excitement about programming. It is about how can we get sustainable funding
Yes.
in a way that doesn't look like it is ineptness on the part of those who are running the institution. And so I think it's important to say that because I think we need to break the narrative that this is just poor management or not being able to deal with the money that we have. This is about underfunding of an institution historically. And so I want to say that, I want to have that on the record. Some things that I've been been working with the staff team about is about what is our increased general fund plan. So, and I know Terrence has been doing some good work and trying to figure that out. Interested, we talk about parity and what is similar in other institutions and not, and dissimilar for this. I think the board seat, now with the Friends makeup, that's why I really appreciate the proposed governance structure of having that board, really honoring and preserving the Friends network, and putting it, and having that, because that has power. But, you know, typically, with a similar financial arrangement, you have somebody on the commission that is also sitting there. That also helps with that connectivity. So those are things from my short time since March, being in this seat, that I see are the biggest gaps. And help me out, Deputy Director, if there's anything that I'm missing, because you've allowed me to bend your ear
Yes.
about this person.
No, I think you've stated some, you know, good points. And then we're always trying to recapture dollars for the Parks Department. And so, yeah, so, and then one of the things is we're trying to, the use tax for, you know, sales tax that's generated from sales online, that would help out with our park budget. So those are my only comments.
Yeah, because currently, just for the community's understanding, currently, the use tax, which is supposed to be, this is my understanding, we're supposed to receive those funds, it's about $7 or $8 million. That money is not coming, it's not flowing into this department, which cuts our budget, right? It's going into, where is it going? Elsewhere.
Yes, elsewhere. No, it's being rediverted
It's-
to other city budgets.
To other city budgets. And this is not about playing the pointing finger game, but I think it's important for us to have a historical context about dollars and where they are going, and what happens if we can recapture that, how we can better leverage that. I mean, we're all one city, so it doesn't do us any good in pointing fingers, but I think that needs to be understood so that we can have collective accountability about what are we really going to do differently to sustain it. I don't want to just put this on the backs of the community, that it just needs to be better planning. I didn't hear you say that.
Right.
But I want to be clear that this is not just about better planning and reorganizing. To reorganize and to have all these positions, you have to have money.
Exactly.
And this institution needs money.
Exactly. And what we hope we have given you is the reasons for why you should consider expanding your vision and shifting the paradigm for how you actually raise money for this institution. So that's why my precursor to mentioning Kansas City as a model, I say it's a good case study, but Bruce Watkins is a different situation. And black museums around the country have traditionally been underfunded and sort of given, obligatory small check. I keep talking Philly, but I have lots of other places I can speak to. But our African American Museum was founded in 1976. It's right across the street from a prison, quite frankly. And they've just received major funding to move up to the Parkway where all the other big museums are. That's a game changer.
Mm-hmm.
It will be triple the size and a lot more revenue. It will benefit from robust school, tourism, all of that kind of stuff. And that makes a major statement. So I believe that you have an institution that can make a statement, and it does need money, and I think that you need to look at a revenue mix that is government, private, and corporate, and grants, okay? So not any one or the other. And you have free admissions over there, so that means even when I look at the cost of rental, you can definitely increase revenue rental over there. That's a beautiful building. And that's why I say a marketing person, you need a salesperson to go sell that space. Most museums do sell that space, and they work with a number of institutions, even corporations, to do events in those spaces. So what we hope we've given you is the ammunition to do a game-changing possibility. So I'm good. I am so glad that you said what you said, because we can't often be the ones to deliver that message. We've given you the
It's only the
research
truth.
and the background to state your cause. And again, you've got some phenomenal people that have carried this torch for a long time. So, Ms. Carmen?
Yeah, so I know in the interest of time, I'd like to, unless there's other questions up here, go ahead and move to public comment on this item specifically. The first is Mr. Hughes.
Can you speak about the time? We need to-
I really appreciate
Do
the
you have a time limit?
opportunity.
Oh, I'm sorry, and just to note, all public comments are limited to 3 minutes. Thank you.
And I'll try to be brief because Ms. Ross did an excellent job. First, I'd like to just thank the board for allowing the opportunity for us to come before you to speak to the Bruce R. Watkins Cultural Center. It's my conclusion, and it's hard for me to come in front of a city initiative, Parks Board, City Council, Mr. Contreras, Ms. Smith, to appeal or criticize. Having worked for the city or having been a city administrator, it's very difficult to stand before you. And actually, I come, as I said, to Ms. Smith to beg for the Ross Group and the Bruce R. Watkins Cultural Center. You know, I'm one of the people who've been asked to come. A number of other people were made aware of this initiative and the challenge from the meetings at Bruce R. Watkins and, of course, the Parks Board when we came out to make a few comments. I'm here to basically appeal to you to support the Ross Group's findings. As a city administrator, it pains me to say, you know, I've been a part of the process where the state government, city government, where great plans have been talked about in community. Community resonates regarding the plans, Ms. Smith. And at the end of the day, sometimes the plans are set on shelves and they never implemented, Mr. Contreras. And so at the end of the day, we, as a community, are sick and tired of just planning with no implementation. So, you know, I'm here to appeal and ask for your approval for not only this initiative, but most importantly, the considerations that they've made recommendations for. Our governance structure, Mr. Garlick, that needs to be updated and improved. Not to say that the state have not done a good job, they have done. Not to say the city hasn't done a good job, you have done. But we all need to step up a little bit. I'm disappointed that 20 years ago, 30 years ago, when the ladies of the fountains marched and stood up, I didn't. I basically was busy doing other stupid things. And so today I come before you to beg for you to stand up and approve this structure that will possibly improve governance and make things better. We love the thought that the Kansas City Museum's model would be a model that we could follow and use. The organization needs to have strong fiduciary responsibility and support. There are significant grants and fundraising initiatives that can be brought to this organization, but it needs to be structured in a different way. The Friends have done an excellent job, and again, I just applaud, especially some of the ladies who dead and gone, Ms. Watkins, Ms. Shaw, a lot of the women who were behind that effort, Councilor Senator Wilson. I mean, a number of those ladies who are no longer here, but you have these young ladies who were at their youthful age at that time. Again, we would love to request that they continue to be part of the legacy of implementing whatever we do. We're calling on this board to have a very strong implementation plan to ensure that what the Ross Group has come up with is implemented. We don't think that the commission should allow a great plan to be paid for and then just sit it on the shelf because whether it's the mayor or an administrative officer like Mike Hughes just decides to go in a different direction. The city of Kansas City, the citizens of Kansas City are sick and tired of that. So we're just fed up with a whole bunch of autocrats planning for what goes on in our communities. The black and brown communities are at this point where we're up to here. And actually, you see it manifested in the white community where many white citizens are enraged about what's going on in America. So we need to take control right now. We need to take control of what's going on in Kansas City, and we need to make sure that we stand up with Mr. Cleaver to move forward with an implementation plan that makes sense and that has 15 or 20 people as an advisory group working as liaisons on this implementation committee with the Parks Board to help implement a 5-year plan, not just a 1-year plan and then you're off. You got to have 5 years of implementing her plan to bring $2.3 million to $3.5 million into the organization that is private sector driven mostly. We got to have a public-private partnership. for the 30 years of my public life, whether it was the state of Missouri, the city of Kansas City, YMCA Boys and Girls Club, or pitching for you guys, I strongly believe that the only thing works is strong public-private partnerships. And I know, in talking with Mr. Tira, there are private sector firms and others who are out here waiting to help provide budget support. Now, at this point in my life, almost 80 years old, I got to stand up and say I'll volunteer to work with any committee to help ensure that the plans don't just sit on the shelf, that Mike Hughes is personally engaged, Ms. Smith, to help implement those plans, and at no fee to you, and to the community, doing what you do from an altruistic standpoint. I have been doing that all my life, and at this point in my life, going on 80, I'm willing to do that for the Bruce R. Watkins Center in this community, and hope that others from the community will join in. There are people who are saying, Mike, it's about time. Some of the pioneers who cannot stand up, and as I said to Reverend Black, who said, well, Mike, I don't necessarily want to speak. You get up and say something. Again, and I know he's a pioneer, and he's been out here a long time pushing the ball. We need to now step up and push the ball a little further. I'm going to call on Ken Backus, who is a past city council member, who needs to help rally around this with our new council and help galvanize our city behind this. It just doesn't need to be the Parks Board fighting this fight. And I've talked to some city council people, and they say they're delighted to help. So again, we got to structure a long-term plan, and we got to do what we need to do to make it happen. I know I've exceeded my time, and thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to say a few things. And we'll work with you ongoing here in Kansas City. You got us.
Thank you, Mr. Hughes.
So you can take my seat, Jim. I gotta go to another meeting.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hughes. Reverend Black.
Your name still ended up on the,
Yeah.
on the docket, Reverend Black. Welcome.
This is a shocker, even though when I got here earlier, I've been asked a half a dozen times, was I going to speak? I would have to speak in support of everything that has been said. There is a saying that many church people are familiar with. It says, we meet, we greet, we sing, we pray, we fuss, cuss, and discuss, and don't accomplish a damn thing. Mm-hmm. And what I would like to emphasize here is the same thing that Mike just said. Kansas City has a tradition of putting things on the shelf and letting them sit. And I hope it doesn't happen to this. I hope that we move quickly and act aggressively and implement the plan. I got a newsletter today from the St. Luke's Cardiological Association, and in it they mentioned Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift as reference to Kansas City now becoming, which I think it always has been, but becoming more of a boom town. And that's true. If you look at the developments in Kansas City, the inspirations and aspirations of things to develop and build in this city, we are moving to top shelf ourselves. And the Bruce Watkins Cultural Center will be vital in that growth and development. In this particular sense, is that it provides a facilitation for many things, from exhibition, theatrics, to civic affairs, to entertainment, to accommodations of every kind. I heard someone say earlier that we were going to work towards an annual fundraising event. I'd like to see a quarterly fundraising event. I think it can be done. I think the means within this community exist to bring it about. And I think that that should be varied, from everything to museum-type displays, to artistic things, to theatrical, musical, literary, name it. This is a cultural center. And as such, it should cover all aspects of human culture, whether it's black, white, Asian, Australian, or what have you. It's a cultural center, not a black center. It is black-based and is black implemented, and to me that is secondary. It's the foundation, but it is secondary in what the means of promoting and supporting this institution can be. Everybody in Kansas City, of all the cultures, of all the races, and all the neighborhoods, are proud of the Bruce Watkins Cultural Center. And I think all of them would be willing to commit, not only financially, but morally, to the support and upkeep of this facilitation. The uses have been, that I'm familiar with, mostly civic. Our neighborhood organizations, our community groups have had meetings here. I have never yet come to this center and had to present a ticket to get in. I think that's something that should change. That many of the events that held here should be paid events that require a ticket for admission. And I think that that's one way to support this facility. And there are a whole lot of things that could tie over into. Just keep that under your hat and try to move it into your thinking. And I think I'm getting close to the end of what I got to say. But I hope that what I have said has made a difference in your thinking and more so in your acting.
Thank you,
All right?
Reverend Black.
Thank you, Reverend.
All right.
All right, Ms. Cleaver.
Thank you very much. Well, after Reverend Mike Hughes, he's gone, so he didn't hear me say that. And Reverend Black, I don't think I need to take much of your time. I want to thank the board, the friends, the staff for moving forward with this study and with this report. So that's the first step in making things happen. I'll be very brief because so much has already been said. The Bruce R. Watkins Cultural Center is an under-realized vision and an underutilized facility, and it has been for so long. The original vision is realized in spite of the great work done by the Friends. Even that has not been realized. And as the very good report done, the excellent report done by the Roz Group indicates, it can be so much more. So I hope we're going to realize the vision now and begin to take those steps and to really realize the potential that is there. I want to associate myself with the comments of Ms. Smith, which I think are all of them, but particularly about the inequity in funding. That's really something that we as a community, we as a city, you as the park board, we really need to do something about that. We, as a city, we're better than that. And so let's show that we're better than that by acting in that way. And, I'm sure the money can be found. As someone who has spent my entire career working in nonprofits, so I call myself a professional beggar, I know the money, is out there between city, state, private, corporate, if the will is there. And then the third thing I want to say is, I think this is the third of these meetings I've been to. I think the largest that I went to was at the Watkins Center itself. And one thing that so many people, and there are about 25 people there, harped on was this: we have to implement, not a plan on a shelf, not a plan on a shelf. Can we really see something happen? So I have faith and trust in the park board that you all are going to make sure that happens. I have faith and trust in the community, in the friends, in all of us. I'll volunteer with Reverend Mike Hughes to help make sure that that does happen. So thank you very much, and I look forward to your next steps. I think the report is excellent. It covered so many areas, and if we can just begin to get in and do some of those things. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Ms.
you.
Cleaver.
All right, and then Ms. McKinley, I'm sorry.
Orly.
Hello, my name is Oralee Watkins McKenzie, and I am a descendant of Bruce Watkins Sr. And I'm here on behalf of the Watkins Foundation, speaking on behalf of the family. Just making sure that we continue to stay in the loop, making sure that program initiatives are being addressed. I agree with Roz that Kansas City Museum is the excellent mock I am an educational consultant with the Kansas City Museum, and they helped Life 360 and the Watkins Foundation tell our story on the 11,000 acres of land on a digital format. We're able to talk about the 85 descendant families that resided on that plantation. There are a couple of descendants that are in the room, Miss Lucille Douglas and her son. They are with the Banneker Foundation in Parkville, Missouri. She's sitting right here. Historian in Parkville, Missouri, and she has worked closely with us to make sure that our family's name is being honored the way that it should be. I'm here to make sure that Bruce Watkins Sr.'s name won't be used in vain. I don't want to ever see this building go down. I have tears in my eyes because I'm passionate about programs, initiatives actually happening. I have some ideas. I have ran them across a couple of you guys. You know who you are. And I just want to let you know that I'm still here and I'm not going to leave. On behalf of the Watkins Foundation. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's everyone who had signed up. I know we had a couple latecomers, so I just want to make sure, was there anyone else who wanted to make a public comment?
Yeah, we have one from the floor. Mr. Nunley. Excuse me. Sorry. Taking them.
Another preacher. It was once said to me that lateness has its merits. And I always wondered about that because as a college student at the University of Michigan, I used to be late constantly. And I wondered what was so interesting about being late is that you kind of get geared up for the task, even though most people think you are late and behind, but you're just usually right on time. And I want to take that opportunity to say to you that I believe I'm right on time. Now, I want you to know that I've taken a little different task in understanding what happens at Bruce R. Watkins. I've gone down there 14 times doing the operation and kind of learned what goes on there on a daily basis, what kind of things actually happen there. Now, Carmen, you know me, I come up here many times, and I'm kind of meddlesome old guy, but more importantly, I look and see and feel rather than react and communicate. So I get kind of an idea. Diane, you've worked with me for, 5 years or so in the process. And it's kind of interesting that very few people take a bird's eye view of any organization. And I'm kind of that guy. I don't sort of make my mind up early, but I do look at what goes on. And what I've seen at Bruce R. Watkins is something that you probably don't know about. Now let me tell you a few of those. One of them is an interesting thing called Conversations with the Elders. Now, at first that sounds like something that would appear on these Facebook things, you know, what they call them, flyers. Yeah, flyers. And they sort of communicate that something is going on. Well, I kind of wandered in on one of those, and I was really surprised that one of the people there was a lady called Joanne Collins. Now, many of you may not know Joanne Collins, but she represents kind of an interesting enigma to our community. First of all, she is black and female, but most of all, she kind of became a Republican to kind of see the outer side of the inside. Now, that's intriguing to me because these people's perspectives are important, but she filled up the room. Now, I want to say that to you is because most of you probably won't get a chance to go down to the Bruce R. Watkins, but you ought to go one day and hear one of these conversations with the elders, because it is with the elders that has designated the future. They had in mind something about this that has either yet to be materialized or implemented in such a way that they had the vision for. And you ought to know that. Now, those of us who have lived long enough to be late enough to be able to sort of see this, we kind of get a bird's eye view from the bottom, not for what it may appear today. Somebody had something in mind for Bruce R. Watkins that they felt was important at that time. And you, as responsible citizens, ought to tap into that. And you know, when you see these T-shirts that say tap into it, I kind of tap into it. So I went and visited with the present director, Emil. This was on advice of Ms. Smith, who's part of you, and just kind of got to know him. And I met with him probably, what would you say, Emil, 14 times, maybe?
Oh,
Yeah,
you're welcome.
But every time I went, I found out something different. And I think it's incumbent upon me to say to you what I found out so that you won't just pass this off as another report, that you'll really see that it's already underway what was intended for when it was conceived way back when, 30-some years ago. Now, let me tell you what I saw. And I know it's taken me a long time, but it's one thing about being late and being elderly, you get to talk the longest. I know that, and I'm going to get to that, and that's why I said it's very important that you see that some awful good things are happening there. And it may not be obvious to you as recently appointed commissioners, but it's important to us who have seen it evolve over time. And I want you to know there are some things going on that may be of interest to you, or at least it may be worth your seeking into in order to get a drift like I have of that after having been in this community for over 60 years. Now, if it sounds like I'm preaching to you, I'm not. I'm really trying to get you to see up close why it's important to people being here tonight. It's not kind of like uniform, or it's not monolithic, and it certainly is complex, but you have to see it. So what I want you to do is to appoint an implementation committee that allows each of us to know that you are interested enough to come up close to see what we see, or more importantly, see what the founders or the thought purveyors of this operation saw way back when. It's more underway than you would think, but I won't try to cloud or persuade you. What I will say is, come on up close, and then I invite you to be a little bit closer than you would have been otherwise. This implementation committee is very important because it's a partnership, and it's an opportunity for you to see what we see, but most importantly to participate in something cultural that you may not have been able to define prior to me talking. Take care.
Thank you,
And I
Mr.
Thank you
Nunley.
so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, come on.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak. I will not take 3 minutes. What I have to say is very brief. I want to thank all of you on the commission for serving the community in the capacity that you do. My name is Imani Mehta. I just would like to speak on behalf of the youth. I believe in being culturally responsive, and what I heard from a lot of people that have been going to these meetings, and I believe I've attended all of them, was that they wanted to see programming for the youth. And I know 3 things about Bruce Watkins. 1 is that he was a civic leader. 2 is that he was an entrepreneur, and 3 is that he was an aviator. And I do have a STEM organization, but regardless of who you put in that capacity, I would like to be able to see youth programming directed in those 3 areas. 1 for civic leadership, so that the kids understand what it takes to become a civic leader, how leadership, how the city works in terms of how City Hall works, what it means to be on the City Council, how do you run for City Council, and I think that would really speak to Bruce Watkins' legacy. Entrepreneurship, I'd like to see STEM entrepreneurship. We've got 2 huge data centers here in Kansas City, Facebook and Google, and we're doing absolutely nothing to prepare our young people for those jobs. So I'd like to be able to see, just something done so that the youth can at least be aware of those jobs. There's no point in pointing fingers at the school board and saying they should be doing it and they're not doing it. If you have the capacity, we can step up and do that. Number 3, aviation. American Airlines, 80% of their workforce is over the age of 63 years old. When they retire, there's no one to replace them. So you think that you're having a problem now seeing cancellations and flight delays, it's really going to increase when those people retire. And so there are some organizations here in Kansas City, I belong to 3 of them, that provide scholarships and training to be able to either get a pilot's license, a drone operator's license, or just if you want to fly just out your own private plane. So I hope you take those things into consideration. Thank you so much for listening to me.
Thank you, Manueta. Anyone else? All right, then I will thank Ms. Ross for traveling here, for all the hard work you did on this plan. I want to thank all the members of community who showed up today. It certainly